if we're currently at Ethereum's maybe 50% market cap of Bitcoin, and we think Bitcoin's a 10x from here, I see no reason to believe that Ethereum isn't at least a 10x sort of lockstep. Whereas Ethereum is like it's a decentralized operating system. So the promise is that you can create these applications on top of it. A product is very sticky and has a lot of like product market fit, a lot of users and momentum. Something has to be like 10x better for people to switch. Ethereum has a huge first mover advantage. It's on every major exchange. When people build stablecoins, like Gemini's built the Gemini dollar stablecoin, you start building it on Ethereum. There's so much building that's been happening there that like that's where you want to go, because that's where eyeballs are. The thing that has to happen though is scalability and throughput. Its ability to process like many transactions cheaply. So right now, because that migration, so Ethereum 2.0 or Ethereum 2 is promises to solve this, and that migration is happening. But right now, there can be so much excitement that if things get hot or Ethereum can fall victim to the weight of its own success. So transaction prices go through the roof when there's a lot of activity and people are moving through different projects. So if it doesn't scale or make that migration successfully, which I do believe it will, then that could be a problem. And just to build on that, Tyler, to take like the other side of Ethereum, it's sort of theirs to lose. If you look at the operating space, there are a few major operating systems around the world. You've got OS, iOS, Android, Linux, Windows. So it's not just sort of one operating system. There are network effects for sure, but we do see a couple of really big systems, at least in computing, and so it is possible that some newer layer one protocol says, hey, we're going to start at proof of stake. We're going to make a better smart contract language. It's easier to program, more secure. I think Tezos is an example of a project that launched with these things from day one. It hasn't had the same uptake, at least yet, as Ethereum. Maybe Solana's up there as well. I'm not as familiar with that project, but I think that there's going to be opportunities for other people to enter the race with potentially a 10x better project. But I think in my mind, it's a question between Ether winning all or winning a very, very big chunk of an enormous pie. I think in either case, it's an incredible long-term hold. The question is how incredible, what varying degree of incredible. Right, 5,000, 5 to 10 feels like a reasonable range towards year end, and I guess if we're currently at Ethereum's maybe 50% market cap of Bitcoin, and we think Bitcoin's a 10x from here, I see no reason to believe that Ethereum isn't at least a 10x sort of lockstep. Right. And maybe quite frankly, a lot more, to my previous comments about how do you put a bound on this type of innovation and creativity. You really can't. So there's a psychology here. Like I remember when Bitcoin broke 50,000, it was like hovering at like 48, 49. And we're humans, right? So there's psychology. I think if Ether breaks 5,000, it just feels psychologically like a really interesting inflection point.
People like round numbers.
Yeah, people like round numbers. Then at 10,000, people's heads are going to explode. Yeah. So look, we love both these projects. They're incredible, and I think that they'll probably move lockstep in many ways. But right now, the focus has been on Ether. It's super hot, and you could argue that it was not there in large part because people were really focusing on Bitcoin during the early, half of the pandemic and inflation. And I think that will come back and it will just sort of go between the two.
I think it's very high. In some ways, I haven't done like math on that lately. So for disclosure, and we've talked about this before, that we have material stake in Ether as well. Like you mentioned earlier, the media loves Bitcoin because it's easier for consumers or readers to understand that, and they harp on that, and that makes sense. But what's less talked about and less known is that we are huge fans of Ether, or Ethereans, if you will, in the slang. So, look, I think Ether has tremendous capabilities because Bitcoin's digital gold, right? It's sort of moving value from A to B, and there doesn't seem to be a huge appetite in the community to experiment or sort of screw it up, right? It's like, we've got a good thing going, let's not run too fast, let's not be too exotic. Whereas Ethereum is like it's a decentralized operating system. So the promise is that you can create these applications on top of it, permissionless. The same way you could build an application, I don't know about anymore, but back in the day, you could build a company on top of Facebook. So companies like Zynga, which actually IPO'd and was worth, I think, at least $1 billion, was a company built on top of Facebook. So most companies today are built on top of a cloud computing service like Amazon. So you rent space from Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Ethereum is a decentralized Amazon where you can build your applications there and you run the computing power by owning Ether. Instead of running your credit card through Amazon Cloud, AWS Web Services, you just pay the network in Ether. It's not centralized. It's not a company. It's a decentralized network. And you can you could create decentralized Twitter on it. You could create decentralized Facebook, decentralized whatever. No one can stop it. No one really controls it. It's owned by the users. That's the beauty of cryptocurrency, is that the value accrues to the people who use the network, not just a few people in a company in Silicon Valley. So, Ether's got to upgrade. It's moving to Ether 2. There's some scalable things that it's got to work through. But like, I'm an optimist, and the smartest folks in the room are working on it. So if Ether is your global computer in the future, what's that worth? It's got to be a ton, and it's got to be worth as much as digital gold, I would think, maybe more.